Servlet context attribute listener. Next one, jakarta.servlet.http session listener. Fourth one, jakarta.servlet.http session attribute listener. Okay. There are many are there. I given 4. The program you studied yesterday, one program you studied. You have seen Servlet context listener. You have seen Servlet context listener. In this listener, how many methods are there? 2 methods. What is first one? Context initialized. Context initialized. Second method, context destroyed. 2 methods you have seen. When this method is executed, whenever web application is deployed on server. When this is executed, whenever web application is undeployed from server. See, this program you studied yesterday. My listener. In my listener, see, my listener implements Servlet context listener. Okay. My listener implements Servlet context listener. In that Servlet context listener, context initialized, context destroyed. 2 methods are there. I overridden. Now, whenever web application is deployed, then Servlet context created, then Servlet context event generated, then this method body executed. Whenever Servlet context, whenever application is undeployed, Servlet context destroyed, then event generated, received here, this method body executed. So this is automatically done. So we are not going to call listener methods. Listener always it will listen, it will handle. That type it works. Next, Servlet context attribute listener will see. Note on. Servlet context attribute listener. Servlet context attribute listener. It contains the following event handlers. To handle Servlet context attribute event. It contains the following event handlers to handle Servlet context attribute event, which is generated by web container. It contains the following event handlers to handle Servlet context attribute event, which is generated by web container. It contains the following event handlers to handle Servlet context attribute event, which is generated by web container. Listeners are classes or interfaces? Interfaces. Event handlers are methods. Events are classes. Events are classes. Event handlers are method. Say Java P Jakarta dot Soulet context attribute listener. Here three methods are there. Write these three. It contains the following event handlers to handle Soulet context attribute event, which is generated by web container. So this event handled by these three methods. But when this event is generated, I'll give notes. Is it over? Say it is class or interface, which contain these three methods. So it is listener, interface. These are event handlers, methods. It will handle event. It is class. It is class. Okay. These objects automatically generated by web container. But when it is generated, I'll give notes. Note on. Solid context attribute event is generated by web container. Solid context attribute event is generated by web container whenever attribute is added to Solid context comma attribute is removed from Solid context and attribute is replaced in a Solid context. Solid context attribute event is generated by web container whenever attribute is added to solid context, attribute is removed from solid context, and attribute is replaced in a solid context. So this event is generated whenever attribute is added to context, attribute is removed from context, attribute is replaced in context. See, solid context is created. Suppose solid context is created. When solid context is created, solid context nothing but some memory that is created. When it is created, whenever web application is deployed. Whenever web application deployed, suppose it is server, it is web application, it is deployed, then context created. Whenever context is created, also event generated. No, which event generated? Solid context event. Solid context event. Yesterday you studied that one. So whenever application deployed, solid context created, solid context event generated. That event passed to which method? Which method? Context initialized method. Context initialized method in which interface? Solid context listener. That method body executed in that method. Okay. Suppose this solid context, when it is destroyed, whenever web application is undeployed, then also event generated. No? Which event generated? Solid context event, same event, but that is passed to which method? Context destroyed method. Context destroyed method. Yesterday I given these all. The following series of, I given no, this is no need to write, yesterday written. The following series of actions done by web container whenever web application is deployed on server. I given no, these notes I given. The following series of actions done by web container whenever web application is deployed on server. First, what will happen? Solid context is created. Second, what will happen? Solid context event is generated. Next, what will happen? Solid context event is passed to context initialized method. Next, what will happen? Context initialized method body executed. So what will be happen? See, first it is server, it is web application, it will deploy. Then first context created, context event generated, that is passed to this method body executed. These all automatically done. These all steps automatically done. So you are going to deploy application, then automatically solid context created, automatically solid context event is generated, automatically this event is passed to this method, automatically this method body executed. That means context initialized method, when it is executed, whenever web application is deployed on server. You are going to deploy, these all steps done, this is executed. Okay. You have seen one more, again 4 steps. The following series of actions done by web container whenever web application is undeployed from server. Now, here, first what will happen? Servlet context is destroyed. Next what will happen? Servlet context event is generated. Next what will happen? Servlet context event is passed to context destroyed method. Next what will happen? Context destroyed method body executed. So these all automatically done. These all yesterday you have seen. Okay. See, in yesterday program, it is my listener class. It is my listener class. My listener implements servlet context listener. In servlet context listener, 2 methods: context initialized, context destroyed. Say first application deployed, then this method executed. Application undeployed, this method executed. Whenever application deployed, connection established. Whenever application undeployed, connection closed. This program I'm not executing, no, automatically executed. Like that only, today one more event you are learning. Now, this is yesterday you have seen. So these steps yesterday I given. These all I given yesterday. These all the steps already yesterday you studied. These all, whenever application deployed, this method executed. Whenever application undeployed, this method executed. Okay. Whenever application deployed, this method executed. Whenever application undeployed, this method executed. These all automatically done. Okay. Now, that is yesterday program you studied this one. Today you are learning this one. What I given see? This is also one event listener. This is also one interface. In this interface, 3 methods are there: attribute added, attribute removed, attribute replaced. Now, which event? Servlet context attribute event. When it is generated, whenever attribute added, attribute removed, attribute replaced. Suppose it is servlet context. It is created already. Servlet context. It is created. Now, in a servlet program, if you want to get servlet context, what is the statement you will write? Servlet context sc equal to request dot get servlet context. You will get a context. With this sc dot set attribute, some attribute you will add. Some message, something welcome. I'll write. Then what will happen with this line? With this line, attribute added to context. Okay. Here, message. Message. Here, welcome. Okay. Now, servlet context reference dot set attribute. Whenever attribute added, here what I given? Servlet context event is generated by web container whenever attribute is added to context. So if we call this method also one event generated, say servlet context dot set attribute, attribute added. Whenever added, this event generated. This event passed to attribute added method. Okay, attribute added method. The method is available in servlet context attribute listener. Okay, so that method body executed. Suppose if I write servlet context dot remove attribute. Now message. Then what will happen? It is removed. It is removed from context. Then again event generated. Again, which method called? Attribute removed. Attribute added, attribute removed, attribute replaced. Suppose if we call again servlet context reference dot set attribute message. Suppose now I'll write hello. Now what will happen when this line is executed? It is message only. Here modified. Then replaced. Then also event generated. So while adding attribute, while removing attribute, while replacing attribute, this event generated. This event passed to these methods. Whenever attribute added to servlet context, this method called. Whenever attribute removed from servlet context, this method called. Whenever attribute is replaced in a servlet context, this method called. So these methods automatically called. While adding attribute, while removing attribute, while replacing attribute, whatever you want, that code you write here, here, here. These all automatically executed. Okay. Now, so writing program is same. What you have to do? You have to write one listener class that implement this interface. These three methods you have to override. Whatever you want, you can write. Those all automatically executed. Okay. Now, third one I'll give HTTP session listener. Note on HTTP session listener. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session event which is generated by web container. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session event which is generated by web container. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session event which is generated by web container. Here what are the methods are there? I'll give. Note on. HTTP session listener. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session event, which is generated by web container. Session created, session destroyed. Now, HTTP session event is generated by web container whenever session is created and destroyed. It is related to sessions. HTTP session event is generated by web container whenever session is created and destroyed. See, HTTP session listener, it is interface. It contains these two methods. These methods handles HTTP session event. This is generated by web container. When it will generate, session is created, session is destroyed. Now, give me answer. Already sessions completed, no? When session is created. When session is created. When session is created, when session is destroyed. You are giving answer, but I'm not getting. That means multiple different answers. If all are same answer, I can understand. But multiple answers means I cannot receive. When session is created, when session is destroyed. Login, session created. Logout, session destroyed. That is general terminology. In the programming, which method you have to call to create a session? Which method? Get session. Get session return type. HTTP session. What do you write? HTTP session HS equal to request dot get session. Now, this line, will it create session? Yes or no? Yes. Here, if the session already exists, it will continue. The session does not exist, it creates. Suppose if I write like this, same. If I write like this, if already is there, it returns that one, it will continue. Not there, it won't create. Error comes. Okay. Now, here, whenever get session method of HTTP servlet request is called, then session created. Okay. In a programming, general terminology, whenever you click on login button, session created. Whenever you click on logout button, session destroyed. That is general. But login button backside, this is only outright. Okay. So, whenever get session method of HTTP servlet request is called, then session created, then session event generated, then pass it to this method, and this method body executed. So, you are going to write this line. This is automatically executed. It is just like a exception handling. Whenever exception occurs, catch block executed, no? Are you calling catch block? No. Can you call? No. It is automatically executed. Whenever exception arise, automatically exception object created. That is passed to catch block. Catch block executed. Here, whenever session created like this, automatically object created for this class. That object passed to this method. this method it executed automatically. So whenever get session method of HTTP servlet request is called, then session created, then event generated, then passed to this method body executed. So whenever get session method is called, automatically this method called. That means now when session is destroyed, whenever you click on logout button, that is general in programming. In a program, when session is going to be destroyed, it's already over. That means when session ID vanished. No one is giving answer. Now my question is, when session is destroyed after 30 minutes, after 30 minutes, automatically session destroyed. Suppose you want to vanish explicitly. Any method is there? Which method? That is setting time interval. What is that? Invalidate. Invalidate method I given no? It explicitly can vanish the session ID. It is possible. That is actually whenever you click on logout, one servlet program should execute. In that program, invalidate you have to call. Otherwise, how it will invalidate? Invalidate method is called session is vanished. So, in the program, by default, after 30 minutes, vanished. If you want to set more than that or less than that, possible to set. That is set max inactive interval. Suppose explicitly if you want to vanish, hs dot invalidate. Now, after 30 minutes, by automatically session destroyed. Then event generated, event passed to this method, then this method body executed. Or whenever this method is called, then event generated, then passed to this method executed. Okay. Say, when this method is executed, whenever get session method of HTTP servlet request is called. When this method is executed, whenever invalidate method of HTTP session is called, or after time interval. By default time interval 30 minutes. Like that. So in your program, this line executed means this is executed automatically. In your program, this line is executed means this is executed automatically. Or after time interval automatically executed. See, it is session listener. It is session listener. Now, actually what we'll do in real time, we'll click on login button. We'll click on login button. Okay. Whenever you click on login button, one servlet executed. In that servlet, we'll write this one, request.get session. We'll write. Suppose you clicked on logout hyperlink or logout button. You clicked on logout hyperlink or logout button. One servlet executed. In this, you'll write hs.invalidate. So you are going to click. Here you are going to click. This program executed. This program executed. Then session created. When you click, this program executed. Session vanished. That type. That's what. When you click on login, session created. When you click on logout, session vanished. We'll say. But in backside, what is happening? This is only working. Backside. For logout hyperlink also, one program we have to write. In that program's hs.invalidate method you have to write. Then only it is logged out. Otherwise, how it will be logged out? But in previous programs, I didn't say invalidate method, but I given notes. For that one also, for writing this one line also, one solid you have to write. But only that line you cannot write in the program. That line if you want to write, either do get or do post you have to write. For that, my solid you have to write. For that, you have to import. For that, you have to throw handle exception. The total you have to write. But task code is one line. Logout hyperlink is nothing but that line. Okay. You will click logout only. Backside one solid is running. Backside one solid program will run. Logged out program I didn't give. Even if you don't write logout also, after time interval automatically vanish. No? That is the reason I didn't give. But already it is automatically logged out after 30 minutes. Cookies also automatically vanished whenever browser window is closed. And if you want to set the time interval, you can set. For that, no need to write this line also. When you close the browser window, automatically vanished. This is also no need to write. Okay. But sessions you have to write if you want to log out. So one logout hyperlink, if you click, one solid program executed. In that program, invalidate method you have to call. Then only it will be logged out. And login button, login method means this method called automatically. We have to write the code. Now, when this method is executed, this event generated. This event passed to this method. This method automatically executed. These are listeners. Automatically it will listen. Always it will listen. Event is there or not, event is there, it will handle. It is just like a catch block. Catch block we are not going to call. Whenever exception occurs, automatically called. These methods automatically executed. You are not going to call. Okay. This third event. Fourth listener. Next. After that, one more program I'll give. Write this one. HTTP session attribute listener. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session binding event. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session binding event, which is generated by web container. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session binding event, which is generated by web container. 1 minute. Note down. HTTP session attribute listener. It contains the following event handlers to handle HTTP session binding event, which is generated by web container. Attribute added, attribute removed, attribute replaced. Here also set attribute, get attribute, remove attribute methods are there, no? These methods automatically called. But session variable, these all only for session. But here event name, binding event, attribute event not there. Here listener name, attribute listener, but event name, binding event is there. They given like that only. See, whenever attribute added to session, this method, attribute removed, this method, attribute replaced. Note on HTTP session binding event is generated by web container whenever attribute is added to HTTP session, comma, attribute is removed from HTTP session, and attribute is replaced in HTTP session. HTTP session binding event is generated by web container whenever attribute is added to HTTP session, attribute is removed from HTTP session, and attribute is replaced in HTTP session. HTTP session, in that HTTP session interface also set attribute, get attribute, remove attribute methods are there. Okay. At the time these are called. Now I'll ask some questions, give me answer. Suppose HTTP session HS equal to request dot get session. When this line is executed, which event generated? When this line is executed, which event is generated? HTTP session event before this. Okay. Suppose HS dot set attribute. Here I'll write some attribute. Then which event generated? HTTP session binding event. Okay. See, when this line executed, HTTP session event generated. When this line is executed, HTTP session binding event generated. But this type of programs already we written. In those programs also event generated. We didn't handle because we didn't write listeners. Listener will listen, but listener I didn't write. That's what not listen. Okay. Now, when this line is executed, which event generated? HTTP session event. That event passed to which method? Just now I explained. session created. Okay. When this line is executed, which event generated? HTTP session binding event. That is passed to which method? Attribute added method. Okay. Suppose hs dot set attribute. Again, same name I'll write, other value I'll write. Which event generated? HTTP session binding event. Which method called? Attribute replaced called. Suppose hs dot remove attribute. Remove attribute. Here same name I'll write. Which event generated? HTTP session binding event. That is passed to which method? Attribute removed method. After this line, hs dot invalidate. Which event generated? HTTP session event. Passed to which method? Session destroyed. Like that executed. So previous listener and this listener both are related to sessions only. First two listeners are related to servlet context. These two listeners are related to HTTP session. Okay. Now, some more questions I'll ask. Give me answer. This is one servlet program. It is my servlet or demo servlet, something. This program, how many times executed? This program, how many times viewed? I want to count the number of views. For this, what we have tried, where we have tried, code, give me answer. Now, my servlet.java, one servlet program. This servlet program, how many times executed? I want to count the number of views. This program already studied, no? Then what we have tried, where we have tried? Count equal to what we have tried? Counting number of views. Program you studied or not? It's already basics. Servlet starting. Starting servlets basics I taught, no? At the time I taught. Basics here. That program also is there, no? Now what we written? Counting number of views, what we written? Int count equal to 0. Where we have tried? Instance variable or class variable or local variable? Instance variable. Count plus plus where we have tried? Inside the service method. That program you already studied, no? Now, you observe this program run on server. It will count the number of views. Now, count. What I given this one? One minute. Here count. One time. Refresh. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You have seen, no? This count will it decrease? Never. Count will increase only. Never decrease. This type of program you already studied. Now, my question carefully listen. This is one server. One user logged in. How many users are there? One. One more user logged in. How many users are there? One more user logged in. 3. One more user logged in. This user logged out. How many? 3. One more user logged in. 4. One more user logged in. This user logged out. 4. This user logged out. This user logged out. Like this. I want to count the number of users at present. Present, how many people are using Gmail? Present, how many people are using Facebook? I want to count. Then what we have to write, where we have to write, give me answer. What we have to write, where we have to write, give me answer. First, my question is clear. One user logged in, count plus plus. One user logged out, count minus minus. That code, where we have to write, how to write, give me answer. Now, first count equal to 0, you have to write. Count plus plus, you have to write. Count minus minus also you have to write. When user logged in, count plus plus. When user logged out, count minus minus. Which one? Session created method. There. Count plus plus. Next. Session destroyed. Count minus minus. Any other? Say, just now you studied session created. In this method, count plus plus. In this method, count minus minus. That's it. Session created, count plus plus. Session destroyed, count minus minus. So this listener required. That listener required and count plus plus, count minus minus, you have to write. Counting number of users. Counting number of views different, counting number of users different. This count will increase also, decrease also. At present, how many people are accessing Facebook server? At present, how many people are using Gmail server? At present, how many people are using railway reservation server? Like that you can count. Present time, how many users are accessing? That type of programming purpose, this is required. Okay. Now, session created, session destroyed. Service method not suitable for this. Okay. Now, here you observe. Session created. Okay. HTTP session event. Here count plus plus. Here some other code you can write. After this, hs dot set attribute. Users count. Again, session destroyed. HTTP session event. Count minus minus. Some other code we have to write to get the session variable. After that, hs dot set attribute. Users count. These two methods in session listener, my listener. Now here HTTP session memory allocated. Set attribute, it comes here. Here also set attribute, it comes here. Users count. Now what I'll do is I'll write one solid, my solid. This count I'll retrieve. HS dot get attribute. Attribute is users. Here you'll get a count. So what we'll do, that listener, this servlet, that is not a servlet, that is listener interface implementation class. That is listener, this is servlet. Both the programs will deploy in server. I'll send the request to my servlet. In that, I'll write get session method. Then session created called. After time interval, session destroyed called. Then count is always updated. With that also one value comes. With this also another value comes. Count increased, updated. Count decreased, updated. If the count increased also updated. Count decreased also updated. Latest value we can print here. At present 5 users are accessing this server. At present 10 users are accessing this server. Like that we can display there. This is our task. No. Is it over? When this method is executed, when this session created method executed, whenever session is created, when session is created, whenever get session method of HTTP servlet request is called. Okay. When this method is executed, whenever session is destroyed. When session is destroyed, whenever invalidate method is called of HTTP session, or after time interval, whenever session expired or session vanished, like that. Okay. Now what I'll do, see, this program, both I'll place in server. I'll send the request to my servlet. Then in this program only get session method I'll call. Then session created. It is executed. Count plus plus. That count to 1 comes. 1 displayed. And again I'll send the request. Again get session method called. Again this is executed. Count plus plus. So 2 displayed. Again I'll send the request. 3 displayed. Again I'll send the request. 4 displayed. Like that sessions are created. After time interval, automatically 1 by 1 vanished. This is called count will decrease. Latest count it shows. Okay. That type program we'll see now. Now, file, new, dynamic web project. Here, HTTP session listener. Here, suppose you are getting by default annotation. In that situation, you make it 2.5 module. XML comes. 3.0 onwards, you are getting annotation. 5.0 I written. And otherwise, you select here, it will generate if you select also. Sometimes if it may not be generated, then you select 2.5. Now, finish. Now, right click, new listener. This is. Okay. Now, HTTP session listener. Class name, my listener. Okay. Class name, my listener. Click on next. Here, which listener? HTTP session listener. Select. Next. Here, this interface implemented. Finish. Say sometimes it will be happen. You are getting Java X, you observe. It is Tomcat version 9.0. That's what you are getting errors all. Just a control shift to O. That is Jakarta. Okay. Now Jakarta came C. Sometime this will be happen. You make it. This all you have to rectify. You have to check it. Okay. Now here you observe the 2 methods are not generated. Whatever I given notes here, because these are default methods. It is not compulsory to override. That's what not came. In that situation, you write. Public void session created. HTTP session event. One more method. Public void session destroyed. HTTP session event. Now, session created, session destroyed. Our task is counting number of users. count variable, instance variable record, or class variable record, or local variable record. Instance variable. Okay, count equal to 0. 0 also no need to write. By default 0 comes no. Now integer count. Here session created. Count plus plus or minus minus. Plus plus. Now this count value we have to place in session variable. For getting session, HDP session HS equal to here no request. Where is request? It is not solid. It is listener class. Here request response will not be there. Now in this class one method is there. HSE dot get session. Now when this method is called, session is not created. This is another method. Method name same is there. See, it is a method of which interface, which class? In that situation, session is not created. Created session returned. That purpose. Okay. Get session method of HTTP servlet request. If it is called session created. Get session method of HTTP servlet request. Then only session created. But here also method name get session. But session is not created. Created session retrieved. Okay. Now HS dot set attribute. Here attribute name users. Here count. Now here actually users set attribute method parameter, two parameters are there. First parameter string, second parameter object, but the count is int type. Is it valid? Valid or not valid? Valid or not valid? Valid, all will give answer because there, now it is valid. Now here actually what is the actual parameter? Object. It is object. You see, I'll write again. See, HS dot set attribute. See here parameter, second parameter object. Okay. Now here I'll write users. Here I'll write count. Now here this count is integer, but actually it takes object. How it is valid? Auto boxing and upcasting. Auto boxing and upcasting. Int converted to integer. That is auto boxing. Integer assigned to object. That is upcasting. Like that valid. After that here. Here what you write? Count minus minus. Again HTTP session HS equal to HSE dot get session. Now HS dot set attribute. Here users. Here count. Over. This is listener class. One more. New solid. HTTP session listener my solid. Next my solid. Here URL pattern, whatever you want, you can write test. Now which type of request coming? Get. Then which method you have to override? Do get. Here HTTP session HS equal to request dot get session. Now when this line is executed, session is created. Yes, it is created. Then that method executed. Session created automatically. When this created session vanished, after 30 minutes, I want to change the time. Set max inactive interval. Suppose if I pass 60, the 60 seconds or minutes or milliseconds. Already I told seconds. Integer is there, seconds. Long is there, milliseconds. That is 3-4 times I taught. Core Java onwards I am teaching. Parameter is integer, seconds. Parameter is long, milliseconds. In a thread class, long is there, milliseconds, multi-threading. Here, integer is there. Integer time interval. It is seconds. 1 minute, that means. Okay. See, when this line executed, session created. After 60 seconds, session destroyed. Like that you can count. 1 minute if you wait, it will destroy. Then count will decrease. Now, after this, you have to retrieve the data. Get attribute method. Get attribute method return type is object class. Can I write integer? What do you write? HS dot get attribute. Is it valid? Is it valid? Not valid. Red line is no. Why it is not valid? Explicit type conversion required because it is downcasting. Okay. It is explicit type conversion downcasting. Next, this count we can print. Okay. Now, print writer. Response dot get writer. PW dot println. At present, count users are accessing this server. Count is a variable, no? What you have to do? Double quotes plus double quotes. PW. If you want to add HTML code, you can add it. Like this. Now see, right click, run on server, save. Test. At present, one user. Okay. Run on server. The internal browser. Okay, 1 minute. I'll change the browser. That internal browser. One session only created. Here, test. At present, how many users are there? 2 users. At present, how many users? 3 users. Four users. Five users. But when it will be logged out? After 1 minute. 1 minute also not completed. Okay. 5 users. 6 users. 1 minute not completed. See what is happened? 5. Actually, 7 should come. 2 users vanished. Okay, 2 users logged out. So 5. Now it may come 6 also, it may come 4 also, 5 also. We cannot predict. 6. 7. 8. See, 5. 4 users logged out. Like that. So when session created, it will increase. Session destroyed, decrease it. This count will user decrease, increase. My listener program, note on. My listener.java. My listener.java. See, counting number of views possible, counting number of users possible. This is number of users. Is it completed? One more program. We'll see tomorrow. That one tomorrow will write. Tomorrow I'll see Ganesh.